Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of A Win is a Win podcast. My name is Edgar Chaput. On today's episode, I would like to dive into a topic that I don't know if I'd go so far as to say that it is near and dear to my heart, but it does pertain to local sports, a local professional sporting team, a club, if you will, CF Montreal, that stands for Club de Football de Montréal, which is the local MLS squad, Major League Soccer. MLS in North America, at least. Obviously, globally, MLS maybe doesn't count for that much. It's no English Premier League, it's no Bundesliga, it's no Serie A, it's no Ligue 1, so on and so forth, La Liga. It doesn't quite compare to those, but over the course of the past 2 decades, ever since David Beckham arrived in LA in 2003, I believe it was, with the Galaxy, things have never quite been the same, and they've been on the up and up. Do I pay incredibly close attention to the MLS? I will admit I do not. I suppose I'm a bit of a snob. I do like my English Premier League more so than my MLS, but I watch a little bit, and since I live in a city that is fortunate enough to have a franchise, well, I try to do my best to keep tap on what CF Montreal are doing. And as I record this on Labor Day weekend, just a few days ago, on Tuesday, August 27th, I feel that a significant chapter in the club's history ended. It closed, perhaps not abruptly, we'll get into it, but it certainly closed shut. That being when midfielder, very talented midfielder, Mathieu Choiniere was traded from the club. He is now in Europe in the Swiss Super League with Grasshopper Zurich. 25 years old, he has many years of great football, or soccer if you will, ahead of him. And I, with a lot of other people from the Montreal area and the province of Quebec, wish him well. He is a local lad. He is born and grew up in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, which is, I don't think it's more than a 20-minute drive, maybe a 25-minute drive from Montreal. It's rather close in the grander scheme of things. And he was traded away. So let's talk about what happened, and let's discuss what this means about the franchise itself, CF Montreal, and where it is in 2024. So the rumors have been going on for quite some time, near the start of the MLS season. MLS, I believe, begins in very, very late February, if not very early March. Montreal doesn't even get any home games until April because it's just too cold to play soccer outdoors in this city in March. Certainly late April, but even March is not much of a spring month here. But in early spring, it became known to the public that Mathieu Choiniere had requested a trade. Now, it would seem that a lot of that had to do with contract negotiations. His contract was coming up. He needed a new deal. And it would appear that said negotiations were stalling, and therefore he asked for a trade. Now, this is several months ago. It's not like he got traded away to a European club on August 27th after asking for a trade at the start of the month or the middle of the month. Discussions about, or word about a trade request had been buzzing since May, if not June. So it had been about 2 or 3 months since those who follow the club closely were aware that Choiniere maybe didn't have that much time left with CF Montreal. Now, to see a young buck like him leave for, hopefully in his case, greener pastures, is bittersweet. Everybody wishes him well, but he was also a very good player for the club. In fact, he had spent his entire playing career with the club. He was one of the players that the franchise developed in its youth academy. And so he worked his way up through the youth club and through the academy until he became a somewhat of a regular fixture during the pandemic seasons. And he was playing more and more, got better and better. In fact, he was voted to the MLS All-Star game last summer, so summer 2023. First time in his career. There aren't that many CF Montreal players that make it to the All-Star game, so that was quite nice in of itself. And to see him leave this week, I felt it put a cap, an end, its closure on a very particular and very bittersweet and, I'll just say it, frustrating chapter in CF Montreal's history. A part of its history that was, for all intents and purposes, a flash in the pan. Allow me to explain. About a decade ago, might have been 2014 or 2015, the club, which is owned by the Saputo family. Saputo, for those who don't know. If you're in Canada, you probably know that name. If you are not in Canada, you might not know that name. The Saputo family, basically they operate, they founded in the 1950s a dairy company. So they produce a lot of cheese and dairy products. And as of 2024, they're one of the most important companies in the country. Certainly one of the most important dairy companies in the country. I think that goes without saying, and that's not up for dispute. So these are the people who own CF Montreal and who finance it. But a decade ago, they put off an absolutely brilliant coup after seeing many other players like David Beckham, Wayne Rooney, and Kaká and Thierry Henry make the transition from Europe to MLS. Well, Montreal did that as well with Didier Drogba, who is one of the most iconic players of Chelsea Football Club, Chelsea being, of course, an English Premier League club. He's won multiple Premier Leagues with them. He had won FA Cups with them. He won a Champions League with them. I even remember that Champions League final against Bayern Munich in Germany. That was a hell of a game. And so Montreal signs him more towards the end of his career. He only spent a couple of seasons, but they were great seasons. Obviously, he blew away the competition. He was far and away the best player on the team for those 2 years. And it was also the only time that Montreal made it as far as the Eastern Conference final, which is good until you find out that the fan base had to swallow the most bitter pill possible, getting eliminated by Toronto FC. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And since then, the club had never quite been the same. There was a lull in the performances until in 2021, a very important decision is made. Thierry Henry had been the manager during the pandemic. He didn't last very long. I don't think he liked being in Montreal a whole lot. Bless his heart. He went back to Europe. He's now an analyst and a commentator, and I believe he helped the French Olympic team in Paris this summer. He's replaced by another Frenchman, Wilfried Nancy, who had been with the club for a little while. He's promoted to the head coach, and things just take off. Now, they don't reach soaring heights in 2021. In fact, the club actually missed the playoffs that year, but not by much. And then they just explode in 2022. They go 25-9, so that's 20 victories, 5 draws, and 9 losses, 65 points, and they finish in second place in the Eastern Conference. They made it to the second round of the playoffs. Unfortunately, their journey ended in the sophomore round. That being said, that record, that regular season record, the 20 wins, only 9 losses, 65 points, second place in the East. That was, without the shadow of a doubt, the greatest regular season performance in the history of CF Montreal. Never before, and certainly not in the couple years since, has CF Montreal performed as well. Wonderful. Things are going to take off now, are they not? Absolutely not. In no shape or form did they take off. In fact, Wilfried Nancy was no longer with the club as of the 2023 off season, by which I mean post 2022 campaign. There was an altercation during the 2022 regular season between him and Joey Saputo, the most notable name of the Saputo family associated with the club anyways. There was an altercation after a game that season, one of the rare defeats that CF Montreal suffered that year. And it was made very public that the two did not particularly get along. And I went back into the archives of a local newspaper, La Presse, this morning in preparation for this episode. And La Presse got to interview Wilfried Nancy as he was coaching his current team, the Columbus Crew, to get a little bit more information about what happened in Montreal. And it would seem as though that during the 2022 season, Nancy had kind of made up his mind long before the end of the season that he was not going to stay in Montreal, and the vibes in the building at Saputo Stadium had some role to play in that. So after 2022, the coach who led the club to the greatest regular season performance in its history leaves. A local Montreal kid, Ismaël Koné, midfielder, had a very good 2022. He sold off Alistair Johnston, a good Canadian defender. He sold off Kamal Miller from Toronto. He sold off. So your greatest coach in franchise history leaves. You sell off a trio, if not more, of significant players who really played significant roles in helping the franchise attain new heights. They're all gone. And now Mathieu Choiniere leaves this season. How the mighty can fall so quickly. And, you know, it doesn't do to live in hindsight. It doesn't necessarily do to live with the what if. But there is a part of me that rues my chances to maybe go see the team play a little bit in 2022. I remember that year. I remember that summer. I was occupied professionally and academically to an extent with other things that year and that summer. So I did not attend any games in 2022. I only went back to seeing the club in 2023, and I saw a handful of games. Ironically enough, one of the last games I went to that season, I've been a couple times this year as well, it was a very late regular season game. I wonder if it was even the home closer, although I remember they had an away game to play after that. And at that time, they were still in the hunt for a playoff spot. And Mathieu Choiniere had scored a goal. He scored a real, what the English would call a super cracking goal, a real cannonball from quite far off. And they won that night. It was a very nice performance. It must have been in October because I remember it being very cold and very wet, very rainy and windy. Not a great night to be outside to watch soccer, but they won, and it was nice to see Choiniere score a goal. Of course, little did anyone know that less than a year later, he wouldn't be on the team anymore. 2023 ends. The team had 12 wins, 5 draws, and 17 defeats, 41 points, 10th place in the Eastern Conference, unsurprisingly, missed the playoffs. So a 24-point drop. That is massive. To go from one of the best teams in the league, forget the Eastern Conference, in the league, to one of the most mediocre teams in the league. And here we are on Labor Day weekend of 2024, and so far, through 26 contests, the club has 6 wins, 9 draws, 11 defeats. And it's it's just not very good this year. Right now, they're 11th in the East. They're 6 points out of a playoff spot. They sold off more players about a fortnight ago. And I remember I had a friend in town, and we went out for dinner last weekend. So this would have been the next to last weekend of August. And we did not go see CF Montreal play. It was an idea. We entertained the idea of going to see them. But we went out to dinner instead. We just stayed in downtown Montreal. And lo and behold, we took a look at what happened that night. The New England Revolution were in town, and New England absolutely obliterated Montreal 5-0. So we dodged a bullet on that one, but it just goes to show how much in tatters the club is these days. And I've taken a look at online, on Facebook, on Twitter, or X, I believe, as it's supposed to be called these days, the commentary, what the fan base is feeling, and the fan base seems to be feeling betrayed these days, because the club was so close, so painstakingly close to becoming a great franchise 2 years ago, not 20 years ago, not a decade ago, not 2 years ago. And in the span of 24 months, the greatest coach in the club's history is gone, and a handful of the best players that the club had are gone, in addition to selling off guys who were there in 2023, but the team didn't make the playoffs in 2023, so I suppose it's not that sad that they're not there anymore. The team wasn't winning with them anyways. All right, Romel Kyoto is gone. He was there in 2022, although he was there last year as well, but he was a little bit injury prone, and he has since been sold off. But it just goes to show you the state in which the club is as we enter Labor Day weekend 2024, and how quickly things have changed. I was even taking a quick look at the payrolls of all MLS clubs. I don't think anybody will be surprised that Inter Miami have the biggest one. They have Lionel Messi, they have Luis Suarez. They brought in other players, internationally renowned players who have known incredible success on the international stage. So no one will be surprised to know that they have the largest payroll. But I guess I shouldn't say to my surprise. I was sort of half expecting this to be the result. But CF Montreal is down at the bottom out of all 29 teams in the league. It has the lowest payroll in the MLS as of 2024, with a total of $8.683 million. Now that does sound like a lot of money, but Inter Miami are paying up to $30 million for its roster. So, Montreal has a payroll budget that's almost 4 times less than the highest one in MLS. And in fact, there are not many teams. I think there are only 2 or 3 clubs that have payrolls that are less than $10 million. Toronto's is significantly larger. Vancouver, the Vancouver Whitecaps, maybe not significantly larger, but theirs is over $10 million. Montreal's isn't even 9. It's not even 9. So it's all a little bit unfortunate. Again, like I was saying at the outset of this episode, I don't pay incredibly close attention to CF Montreal, but they are the local team. The MLS is a league that has earned a certain notoriety. It has earned a certain respect over the decades, so I do pay a little bit of attention to it. It struck me on Tuesday when I learned that Mathieu Choiniere was leaving for Switzerland to play for Grasshopper. Great team name, by the way. That's it. It's over. The glory days of 2022 are officially done. They were kind of officially done in 2023 because the team dropped like a rock in the ocean. But Choiniere was sort of part of the DNA. He was part of the club's, the franchise DNA. He is from the Montreal region. He did develop his skills in the academy. He did make it into the starting 11. He was an MLS All-Star, and now he is gone. He, just like so many of the players of that glorious 2022 campaign, they are all gone. And now the club needs to satisfy and win back, to an extent, a very disappointed and flustered fan base. We will see what they can do. They don't have a big payroll. Obviously, it would be nice to see the club rekindle its luster, but the history of the Montreal, well, formerly the Montreal Impact, these days CF Montreal, I believe they've been CF Montreal for about 3 seasons or 4 seasons at this stage. Or this might be the 4th season where they're CF Montreal. They've even gone through a rebranding. They changed the name for about 2 seasons. Their crest was a gray snowflake. It was very strange. You could hardly read the font on the crest. It was very, very odd. These days their crest resembles the Impact crest, although since it is not the Impact anymore, it's not exactly the same thing, but they sort of re-engineered the old Montreal Impact logo and repurposed it for CF Montreal. So a lot has changed in 3 or 4 years with this team. This is not the same club. They're not at the same level as they were just a few years ago. We will see what they can do. I wish them luck. I know the fan base certainly wishes them luck. It's fun seeing games at Saputo Stadium, especially nice summer nights and even early fall nights. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun show. Unfortunately, the product on the pitch and apparently the people they're hiring just aren't very good. So there you have it. That was another episode of A Win is a Win podcast. By all means, check out my YouTube channel. Just search for Edgar Chaput or Edgar Chaput. A Win is a Win. My last name is Chaput. I'm a little bit everywhere. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. You can also listen to the show on Amazon Music for podcasters. You can listen to it on Spotify as well. There's an Apple Podcasts feed. So a little bit everywhere. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you again, hopefully very shortly. Take care, guys. Ciao. Come on.